الله بالخير. لعل الطبول تقرع. البنتاغون يعلن نشر قوات في غرب آسيا تفوق ما نشر في حربي الخليج الأولى والثانية وحرب العراق مجتمعة كما يروج. الإعلام يسعر الخطاب وينذر بضربة وشيكة. بعض الخطوط الجوية يوقف رحلاته إلى المنطقة. ترامب يهدد بتفكيك ما يسميه النظام الإيراني بالكامل وجميع الخيارات مطروح. لكن إليكم ما لا يقوله أحد، إنها مسرحية. الخبير العسكري الأمريكي ويل شرايفر يصفها بالهراء السخيف المطلق، أسطول لا يستطيع الإنجاز، سرب من طائرات F-15، بضع طائرات تزويد بالوقود، بضع شحنات لطائرات C-17 حاملة الطائرات جيرالد فورد، ربما 350 صاروخ توماهوك في المجمل ضد دولة بحجم إيران. هذا لا يمثل تهديداً يذكر. البحرية الأمريكية لن تجرؤ على دخول مياه الخليج أو حتى خليج عمان. طائرات التزويد بالوقود لا يمكنها التحليق في المجال الجوي الإيراني. ما يريده ترامب دائماً انتصار قصير عنيف حاسم، 0 خسائر أمريكية، استعراض يدخل بقوة ويخرج بسرعة. لكن إيران ليست فنزويلا. ثورة الألوان التي خططت لها CIA والموساد انهارت باعترافهما، ونظرية بيت من ورق سقطت معها. اليوم القيادة الإيرانية تعمل على افتراض أن المواجهة قد تصل إلى أقصى أشكالها. وزير الخارجية الإيراني يحذر المواجهة الشاملة ستكون دموية شرسة وستستمر طويلا. هل المشهد الذي يرسم للهجوم والحرب على إيران حقيقي، أم أن مستشاري ترامب يبيعونه أوهاما لأن هذا ما يريد سماعه؟ أين التضليل فيما يتعلق بنقاط ضعف إيران الحقيقية؟ وهل سيتهرب ترامب من المواجهة ويدعي النصر؟ وهل اشتعال جبهة إيران سيشعل جبهات أخرى في المنطقة؟ نرحب بكم ونرى ونسمع أكثر مع الأستاذ إيلايجا ماغنير، المحلل الاستراتيجي المختص بشؤون غرب آسيا وأوروبا في البعد الأقرب هذه الميادين. وأنا زينب صفار، خليكم ويانا. Salam and welcome to Al Mayadeen. This is Zainab Al Safa for the Proximate Aspect, and my dear guest is Dr. Elijah Magnier, Senior Political Risk Analyst based in Brussels. Elijah, it's absolutely great to have you with us. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm great, thank you.
Always a pleasure. Well, so the President Trump wants in Iran a, quote, short, violently sharp, decisive war with 0 American casualties and no drawn-out conflict, basically like a Maduro-style stunt. Iran's foreign minister says confrontation will be messy, ferocious, and drag on far longer than fantasy timelines. Elijah, will Trump risk a messy war his military can't guarantee when his approval rating is tanking? In fact, his disapproval rating now stands at 47%, and the bond market is teetering. Or will Trump taco again and call it out of the deal? Taco being Trump always chickens out.
I think for Trump, it's very personal, the remark of the Grand Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who attacked him directly. For Trump, who is very narcissistic, he cannot accept direct criticism, and he's ready to move forces, but without any really strategic objective, apart from destroying more the Iranian economy but not achieving anything else, not changing the ruling system or forcing another person into the leadership of Iran or submitting Iran. There is one particular aspect that we have seen during the 12 days war, that we have seen it only once in Lebanon after the war, but that was really unprecedented in Iran, is for the first time the Iranians who are with Tehran and against the policy of the government, standing ahead of the leadership, ahead of the government, ahead of the security forces, and the population was defending the country and was saying, we do not want to be ruled by the Israelis or the Americans, and we are very attached to our country. That shift changed everything in Israel and in the United States. Therefore, any attempt by the US to do anything in Iran, apart from destroying further the economy, cannot be achieved.
Do you think that this is the mood today in Iran post the protests that took to the streets?
Well, we have not seen really protesters in the street apart from the first days in the bazaar, and there were peaceful protesters. We've seen rioters taking over, thinking that they can change something. The only thing they have achieved is just to ban institutions, hospitals, schools, mosques, kill civilians, but they have exposed themselves, and the Iranian government was delighted to find out these people, and that is another indication that the Iranians were working extremely hard after the 12 days to consolidate the domestic front. So what happened in the last weeks when the rioters took over the legal protest in Iran, they really helped the Iranian government and security forces to identify these rioters and to again destroy the uprising of the Mossad CIA, as the Mossad really revealed itself. And that was, in fact, in support of the Iranian security forces, not against the ruling system. And that is angering even further Israel and the Americans.
Right. Now, Elijah, the Pentagon is said to have deployed more firepower than 3 Gulf wars combined, but still can't deliver a decisive strike. What are they saying here? Is the scenario drawn for an attack on Iran real, or are Trump's advisors selling him illusions because that's what he wants to hear?
Look, we have seen a shift in the American policy. During the 12 days war, the Israelis wanting to destabilize Iran, and they want really to break Iran into pieces. That was not the American objective. And we're talking about the 12 days war. And during this period of time, the Israelis tried their best, because they don't care if Iran is shattered into pieces, but for the countries around Iran, 7 countries, it's extremely important to have stability in Iran. However, the change happened in the US policy. Today, we see Donald Trump is leading the campaign of what is called regime change, and asking the Iranians to uprise, and like he is the leader of the rioters in Iran. That's a big change. However, after the several attempts, and we're not talking history here since 1980, the first sanctions on Iran, or the multiple riots that Iran has suffered from and will continue suffering from, we're talking about the Israelis and the Americans trying their best now to really break Iran into pieces. But what the Pentagon is saying, of course, accusing Iran of making a nuclear bomb just a few days ago by the Pentagon, it's an indication that the Americans are building the narrative to justify their attack, which they don't need to, because Trump came out and he was leading the rioters, and he was asking people to change the ruling system. But this is an indication that the Americans are telling us they are seriously building up the military power. However, there is no strategy behind it. There is no objective. There is no achievement that the Americans can reach in this build-up of forces, apart from destroying the Iranian economy.
Even if they made a surgical kind of attack against Iran and kill the supreme leader?
Well, Iran doesn't depend on one person, really. The resistance movement and government like Iran has a leadership that where every leader is replaceable, and the Iranian leadership depended on Imam Khomeini, and Imam Khomeini died. So Sayyid Ali Khamenei took over, and Sayyid Ali Khamenei one day is going to die. Therefore, I don't think this is going to change anything. However, killing the leader of the revolution and Sayyid Ali Khamenei has another significant, because it means assassinating a religious leader, not only the leader of Iran, but one of the biggest leaders of the Shia world. And that is thanks to the Shia. So therefore, either Benjamin Netanyahu or Donald Trump will be attacking the Shia rather than attacking one person.
Right. Now, the window of opportunity based on protests was a miscalculation, and even Western and Israeli intelligence believed the protest wave represented a critical vulnerability. Where is the deception regarding Iran's real points of weakness, Dr. Elijah?
Well, Iran is covering up its weakness since the 12 Days War, and Iran found out many weaknesses. First is the domestic front. There were drones manufactured inside the country. The Israelis were very well prepared. The Mossad and the CIA, they use Iraq because Iran, unfortunately, Iraq is not a sovereign country because it cannot protect its airspace. They use Azerbaijan also to attack Iran, and Iran used missiles that are portable on trucks. That were mistakes for the Iranians that they've changed now. We have seen during the riots how the Iranians managed to close the internet between the outside world, but kept it inside the country. They were able to identify 40,000 Starlink terminals and block Starlink that used to be known that it is impossible to intercept and to be blocked. And also they changed the launching of the missile from trucks to silos. Therefore, they have learned during these 12 days war, and they understood what kind of missiles are impossible to be intercepted. Therefore, the Americans are very much aware of all that, and the Iranians will not go and hit America. They will hit where America feels the pain the most, which is Israel. Now, we see the buildup of interception missile system in Israel, in Cyprus, in Greece, along the Mediterranean, in the Gulf, along the Red Sea, and all that at the service of Israel, because everybody is aware in case of war, Israel will be the main target. And
yes, in light of this, Dr. Elijah, some might argue, well, all actors in the region, including U.S. allies like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, recognize that even a limited strike risks triggering a regional inferno. Iran's retaliation would likely involve its allies across the region, or, as you said, the axis of the resistance, and potentially drawing in major powers like Russia and China, threatening, of course, the global oil supplies. Do you agree? Do you think that the Iranian allies are going to jump in case of such kind of scenario?
This is a very important question, and there are two parts here. First, Russia and China are already in a war, and indirectly, because they are supplying Iran with necessary equipment to jam so many systems that Iran did not have before the 12-day war. And now the Chinese and the Russians are equipping Iran with the necessary for Iran to hold the first American and Israeli hit and be able to retaliate. Secondly, about the allies. In the Iranian constitution, Article 154, it says that Iran support the oppressed people around the world, but never said Iran is going to fight on their behalf or ask their allies to fight for Iran. Now, it is, however, an opportunity for Hezbollah, for example, in Lebanon, to be engaged in this war if there are changes that can be made and if Hezbollah can change the rule of engagement. Otherwise, Hezbollah is better off not engaging because the losses that are inflicted daily on Lebanon are affordable.
Dr. Elijah, allow me to jump in here. But today, is Hezbollah ready? Isn't Hezbollah weak, defeated? Or is Hezbollah building up behind the radar?
Every day that goes by, Hezbollah is becoming stronger, exactly like Iran. Every day that goes by without war, Iran is making more missiles and consolidating its country, its defense, and also its missiles and the attack. For Hezbollah, the calculation is different. Hezbollah, at the end of the war, kept more than 40 to 50% of its missiles. However, the use of the missiles will cause further destructions against the Shia. The Shia in Lebanon are the target. It is not the Lebanese, because part of the Lebanese are against Hezbollah, but even meeting with the Israelis or finding it extremely normal to have relationship with Israel. That has always been the case, but sometimes it is more intense and sometimes it is less. This time for Hezbollah, if the leadership consider that this is a golden opportunity, accepting all the consequences, the destruction that Israel can inflict on Lebanon, and above all, the nomination of Nouri al-Maliki as a prime minister in Iraq, then Hezbollah might seriously consider to take part of the war if Iran allow that, because Iran doesn't need Hezbollah. It is in the benefit of Hezbollah to be engaged only if it is well calculated.
Right. To what extent, Dr. Elijah, is Iran exercising centralized command over its regional allies like Hezbollah, Ansarullah, and the Iraqi Hashd versus allowing calibrated autonomy? And what risks does this pose for unintended regional escalation?
Well, first of all, groups like Hezbollah will never accept Iran to be defeated because it's a question of ideology. It's not a question of alliances. It's much deeper than that. The relationship between Iran and Hezbollah is organic. It is not a proxy. It is not an ally. And the relationship between Iran and Iraq, it's exactly the same. However, Iran doesn't ask the Iraqis to go and fight on its behalf. Iran asked the Iraqis what do they need to protect themselves, because the Americans are still in Harir base in Kurdistan, and the Americans use the Iraqi airspace with the Israelis without even asking the permission from the Iraqis. And Baghdad finds itself involved in attacking a neighboring country that doesn't want to attack. Therefore, it is up to Iraq to react and say what it needs. And in relation to Ansarullah, again, the relationship is ideological and runs extremely deep. It's a poorest country in the Middle East, and despite all that, it was attacked by all the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, Sudan, etc., and plus the Americans mounted the campaign, Donald Trump, for 30 days and decided himself that it was useless, and he stopped the war. For Yemen, decision was beyond the consequences, beyond the losses, because in the doctrine of the resistance, there are no losses, there are sacrifices. Sure. That is the difference of approach.
Right. Is the true US-Israeli strategic endgame in Iran not regime change, but the violent fragmentation of Iran itself into weaker, ethnic-based statelets, or even reduce Iran to a permanent American vassal state? Would that be viable in the case of Iran, Dr. Elijah?
Absolutely not. Because
why not?
Iran can defend itself. It has a vast territory. It is 1,640,000 square kilometers and has a very strong point, which is the curse of the Israeli occupied Palestine. And Palestine is 20,000 square kilometers. That's the curse of the Israelis to occupy such a small country. Therefore, wherever the missiles fall, they will hurt Israel. And when Israel is hurt, America will stop. This is why it is not possible for the Americans to really make any changes in Iran. And because the Iranian population will stand with their government despite their happiness or their unhappiness about the performance of the government.
Right. I cannot let you go without asking you about something very important. Are we witnessing the collapse of the East-West order and the birth of a third global bloc led by medium powers aligning with China?
I think we are certainly witnessing the end of the Western club, which is Europe, Canada, Australia, with the United States. The Europeans have realized that when the Americans invite them around the table, they are actually the menu, but they're not the partners. This is where the Europeans are finally waking up when they are too weak, though, that actually America doesn't have friends and doesn't have allies. It's America first, and the end of Europe is something that falls into the benefit of the United States. So the only thing that we are seeing here is a huge crack in the Western alliances that is becoming very obvious to Brussels and to the leadership of Europe here. And this is when the beginning of the thinking how Europe can detach itself. And the only thing that can hurt the Americans is the dethroning of the dollar. And this is where Europe will go ahead with.
Right, sure. Dr. Elijah Magnier, Senior Political Risk Analyst. Thank you, Dr. Elijah. Absolutely a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
اقرأوا التاريخ كي لا تذهلوا حينما يتكرر. عام 1953 نفذت عملية أجاكس، هي الاسم السري للانقلاب الذي نفذ في إيران بدعم من الاستخبارات الأمريكية CIA والبريطانية MI6، وأدى إلى إسقاط حكومة رئيس الوزراء المنتخب ديمقراطيا محمد مصدق. جاء الانقلاب ردا على قرار مصدق تأميم النفط الإيراني ما اعتبرته لندن وواشنطن تهديدا مباشرا لمصالحهما الاقتصادية ونفوذهما الاستراتيجي في سياق الحرب الباردة. اعتمدت العملية على مزيج من الحرب النفسية وشراء ولاءات داخل الجيش والإعلام وتأجيج الاضطرابات في الشارع لتنتهي بإعادة الشاه محمد رضا بهلوي إلى السلطة وتعزيز حكمه الاستبدادي. لم تكن هذه العملية مجرد انقلاب سياسي عابر، بل كانت خطة أمريكية بريطانية استخباراتية معقدة دمرت الديمقراطية، أقامت حكم الرصاص، كان الثمن نفطا، وكانت الضحية شعبا. اليوم بعد 73 عاما تعود المسرحية ذاتها، الوصفة نفسها، الوكالات نفسها، الهدف نفسه، فرض الهيمنة وإسقاط الإرادة. الغرب لا يتعلم أبدا لأنه لا ينظر إلينا كشعوب، ينظر إلينا كخريطة، كموارد، كرقعة شطرنج. والمأساة هي أن حكاما عديدين لا ينظرون إلى أنفسهم إلا كأحجار على تلك الرقعة. من كل الميادين حياكم.